It was supposed to be the most humiliating night of his life, sitting at the wrong table, dressed in a borrowed jacket, hands trembling over a menu he couldn't afford. But when the woman across from him smiled, everything stopped. The noise, the nerves, the self-consciousness, all of it disappeared in that single moment. For the first time in years, someone actually saw him. Not as the janitor who scrubbed floors at night, not as the man everyone overlooked, but simply as him. Ethan Reyes had never been good at standing out. He was the kind of man who blended into the background, quiet, careful, invisible by habit. He'd learned long ago that people didn't notice those who cleaned up after them. Every night at the Sterling Group Tower, he pushed his mop through the gleaming marble corridors while executives hurried by, their shoes clicking like clockwork, their eyes always elsewhere. Ethan didn't mind the solitude. It was safer that way. But even quiet lives get lonely. His coworker, Marco, a maintenance worker with too much charm and too little filter, had been on him for months about dating. "You can't spend your life with a mop, hermano," Marco had joked one night, tossing a rag into the bucket. "There's a whole world out there, someone who might actually like a guy who smells like disinfectant." Ethan had rolled his eyes. "I don't have time for that. You don't have confidence for that," Marco shot back. Big difference. And then, 1 week later, Marco had set him up on a blind date. "She's nice, man," Marco had insisted. "Her name's Lily, works in finance or something. Smart, independent, real talker. You'll love her." Ethan wasn't convinced, but something inside him, something small, hopeful, tired of empty apartments and microwave dinners, said yes. Now, standing outside Le Verre door, he wondered if that hope had been a mistake. The restaurant glowed gold against the night sky, the kind of place where people whispered instead of talking, where even the air smelled expensive. Ethan looked down at himself. A navy jacket borrowed from Marco, a tie he'd bought secondhand, shoes polished to exhaustion. His reflection in the glass doors looked like someone pretending to belong. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The hostess smiled, her posture straight and polished. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" Yeah," Ethan stammered. "It's under the name Ethan Reyes. I'm meeting someone. Blind date." She scanned her tablet, then nodded. "Of course. Table 7. Right this way." He followed her across the room, his stomach twisting. The place was like a movie. Dim lighting, crystal glasses, soft piano music curling through the air. Each table seemed to hold people who belonged. Men in tailored suits, women in gowns that caught the light like silk water. And then he saw her. She sat alone at a corner table, a glass of white wine in her hand, scrolling through her phone. She was beautiful in a way that didn't demand attention, it just existed, quiet and sure. Her dark hair fell in smooth waves, her skin glowing beneath the candlelight. When she looked up, her eyes caught his, and something inside him faltered. He approached, trying to steady his voice. "Hi, I'm Ethan. You must be Lily." Her lips curved, just barely. "Actually, it's Lydia, but close enough." Ethan blinked, confused. "Oh, sorry, I must have misheard." She laughed softly. "It happens. Please, sit." He did, setting his hands on his lap to hide the way they trembled. "So," she said, studying him with interest. "Tell me about yourself." Well," he swallowed hard. "I'm originally from Queens. I like fixing old radios." "Not much to tell, really." She smiled. "That's refreshingly honest. Most men start by telling me about their job titles or gym routines." Ethan chuckled, relaxing slightly. "Well, my job isn't really something to brag about. Try me." He hesitated. I work in maintenance." "Maintenance," she repeated, leaning forward. "Yeah, building upkeep, cleaning, repairs, that kind of thing." For a second, he thought she'd lose interest, her smile fading, her attention drifting. But instead, her expression softened. "You must have an eye for detail then." "I like that." He didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded, a little dazed. The waiter appeared, handing them menus. "Your usual, Ms. Sterling?" he asked politely. Ethan froze. Sterling. The name hit him like a slap. Sterling Group. His workplace. His boss. He looked up at her, realization dawning. Lydia Sterling. The CEO. The woman whose name was on every pay stub, every letterhead, every door plaque he'd ever seen. For a moment, all he could hear was the rush of blood in his ears. She noticed his sudden silence. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said lightly. Ethan forced a laugh. Didn't expect someone like you to be on a blind date." She smiled faintly. "Someone like me, you know, someone successful. Important." Her expression shifted, just a hint of weariness in her eyes. "You'd be surprised how hard it is to find a real conversation when people only see dollar signs." He studied her then, really saw her. Beneath the perfect posture and diamond earrings was a woman who looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally, like someone who'd spent too long pretending she didn't feel alone. Something inside him cracked open. The conversation flowed more easily after that. They talked about music, favorite places in the city, how she used to paint before work consumed her. Ethan told her about growing up with little, about his late mother who used to say, "Kindness is the only thing that never gets dirty, no matter what you do for a living." Lydia listened, her eyes soft. "Your mother sounds like she was wise." "She was," he said quietly. "She used to make me promise I'd always work with pride, even if no one saw it." "Did you keep that promise?" He looked at his calloused hands. "I try to." For a moment, there was silence between them, gentle, unhurried. The kind that made you forget you were strangers. By the time dessert arrived, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years, seen, heard, known. He forgot where he was, forgot who she was. Then his phone buzzed on the table. A text from Marco. Greater than, "Yo, bro, where are you? She's been waiting at Café Luna for almost an hour." Ethan's blood turned cold. Café Luna, not La Verre d'Or. He glanced at Lydia, her eyes curious. Something wrong. He swallowed hard, panic rising. I think. Then it hit him. He'd sat at the wrong table. Lydia Sterling wasn't his date. She was supposed to be meeting someone else. He shot to his feet. I'm so sorry. This was a mistake. I shouldn't be here." Her brows furrowed. "What are you talking about? I was supposed to meet someone else. I got the wrong restaurant, the wrong table, everything. You're you, and I'm just." She reached out, her hand brushing his wrist. "Ethan, stop." He froze. Lydia's eyes searched his face. "Do you think I stayed here this long because I didn't know? I knew something was off when you called me Lily. But I didn't correct you because," she hesitated. "Because it felt nice, talking to someone who didn't expect anything from me." He stared at her, words tangled in his throat. "You don't need to apologize," she said softly. "You've been more honest with me in 2 hours than most people are in a lifetime." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Still, sit down," she said gently. "Let's finish dessert." So he did. The rest of the night unfolded like something fragile and unreal. They shared stories, laughter, small glances that lingered too long. Lydia told him how she'd built her company from the ground up, how success had come at the cost of trust. "People only see the money," she said. "They forget I'm still human." He told her how invisible people like him felt, and she whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe that's why I noticed you." Outside, the city glimmered. Inside, two people who were never meant to meet sat across from each other, connected by an accident that didn't feel accidental at all. When the night ended, Lydia walked him out. The air was cold and soft around them. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For tonight." He managed a smile. "I should be the one thanking you. You didn't have to let me stay." Her lips curved slightly. "Maybe I wanted to." They stood there, a heartbeat too long, before she waved down a car. He watched her leave, the taillights fading into the distance, until she disappeared completely. Ethan stood there for a long time, the night air filling his lungs, his heart full and aching. When he finally looked down at his reflection in the restaurant window, he almost didn't recognize the man staring back. For the first time, he didn't see the janitor, the invisible one. He saw a man who had made a woman like Lydia Sterling smile. And for a single night, that was enough. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't yet imagine, was that this mistake, the wrong table, the wrong place, was about to change his life forever. He never expected to see her again. Not after that night, not after realizing how badly he'd messed up. He'd spent the subway ride home replaying every second of it, wincing at his stupidity. Sitting at the wrong table, talking to the CEO of the company where he mopped floors, how could he have been so careless? Yet even through the embarrassment, he couldn't stop smiling. He'd never met anyone like Lydia Sterling. The way she'd listened to him. The way she'd made him forget who she was, and who he wasn't. For a few hours, they'd just been two people sharing stories. No hierarchy, no walls, just a spark of something he didn't dare name. But the next morning, reality set in. Ethan was back in his gray uniform, pushing his mop through the gleaming lobby of Sterling Tower, the company that bore her name. His borrowed jacket hung wrinkled in his locker, and the lingering scent of her perfume seemed to follow him like a ghost. He tried to shake it off, reminding himself that people like Lydia and people like him existed in different worlds. He was invisible again, just as it should be. Or so he thought. That afternoon, as he was polishing the brass trim near the elevators, the air around him shifted. A hush fell over the hallway. He turned, and nearly dropped his cleaning rag. Lydia Sterling stepped out of the elevator. The CEO herself, in a tailored white suit, surrounded by assistants and department heads scrambling to keep up. She was mid-conversation when her gaze suddenly flicked toward him, and stayed there. Ethan froze. His heart thundered so loudly he could barely hear. Then, to his horror, she smiled. "You," she said simply. The entire hallway went silent. Every employee stopped mid-step, eyes darting between the powerful woman who ran the company and the janitor holding a mop. Ethan's mouth went dry. "Me, ma'am." "Yes," Lydia said, her tone calm but unmistakably direct. "You. I was hoping I'd run into you." Her assistants exchanged puzzled looks. Someone coughed awkwardly. Ethan's brain scrambled. He wanted to sink through the floor. I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't mean to, interrupt anything." She tilted her head, amusement flickering in her eyes. "Relax, Mr. Reyes, you're not interrupting." The way she said his name sent a shiver through him. She remembered. Lydia turned to her staff. "Give me a moment." They hesitated, unsure, but when she gave a slight nod, they retreated toward the elevator. The last man inside pressed the button with visible curiosity before the doors slid shut. Now it was just the two of them in the empty corridor. "I didn't think I'd actually find you here," she said, stepping closer. Ethan's throat felt dry. "I work here, ma'am. Night shift mostly." "I know," she said. "I checked." He blinked. "You checked?" She gave a small shrug. "I had my assistant look up your employee record this morning." Ethan's stomach dropped. He couldn't tell if he should be terrified or flattered. "I'm sorry if I caused any trouble last night. I swear I didn't know who you were. I just sat down at the wrong table." Lydia's lips curved into a half smile. "I know, and I'm glad you did." He frowned in disbelief. You were honest with me," she said softly. "No flattery, no performance. You talked to me like a person." "That's rare." He didn't know what to say. "I just talked. I didn't think someone like you would want to hear anything I had to say." She studied him for a long moment. "That's the problem, isn't it? Everyone assumes I don't want to listen. But I do." Silence hung between them. The hum of the building's ventilation was the only sound. Then Lydia smiled again, a little more warmly this time. "Do you have a break soon?" Ethan blinked. "A break? Yes," she said, glancing at her watch. "Join me for coffee." His eyes widened. "Coffee? With you?" Her tone was matter of fact. "It's not an order, Ethan. It's an invitation." Every rational part of his brain screamed no, that this was insane, that janitors didn't grab coffee with CEOs, but his heart had already answered yes. They sat at a cafe across the street, tucked in a corner away from the city noise. Lydia ordered a cappuccino. Ethan just asked for black coffee, unsure if he could afford anything else. For a few minutes, neither spoke. The weight of what this was, what it looked like, hung in the air. Finally, Lydia broke the silence. "You looked terrified when you saw me in the hallway." Ethan gave a nervous laugh. "Wouldn't you be? You're my boss's boss's boss. I thought you were going to fire me." She smiled. "And miss out on our accidental friendship?" "Not a chance." He shook his head, still stunned by her openness. "You're nothing like I expected." "Good," she said simply. I'm tired of being what people expect. He looked at her then. Not the CEO, not the woman who owned half the skyline, but the person behind it all. Someone who carried exhaustion in her eyes and loneliness in her posture. Must be hard, he said quietly. Being up there, all alone. Lydia met his gaze, unguarded. You have no idea. She told him about her father, the founder of Sterling Group, and how she'd inherited the empire after he passed. How every friendship she'd made since then came with a motive. How men looked at her and saw an opportunity, never a partner. I've been surrounded by people my whole life, she murmured. But I can't remember the last time someone spoke to me without calculating what they could gain. Ethan swallowed. For what it's worth, I didn't gain anything. Except maybe the best mistake I've ever made. Her lips parted, a breath of laughter escaping. You're dangerous, you know that. Dangerous, he echoed. You say things that make people feel something. Dash. Days turned into weeks. Their meetings became routine, in a way that defied logic. A coffee here, a conversation there. Sometimes she'd come down to the maintenance floor under the excuse of inspecting building operations, though everyone knew the CEO didn't personally check pipes. The staff began to whisper, of course. The janitor and the boss, they said behind his back, smirking. But Lydia didn't seem to care. And Ethan tried not to either. Because for the first time, someone saw him not as the man who cleaned messes, but as someone who mattered. One evening, after a long day, she called him into her office. The space was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows spilling golden light over the city. Lydia stood by the glass, her reflection hovering beside the skyline. You wanted to see me, ma'am? He asked carefully. Lydia, she corrected. No more, ma'am. He hesitated, then nodded. Lydia, she turned, her expression unreadable. Do you like working here? Ethan blinked. I do. It's steady work, honest. But does it make you happy? He hesitated. It's enough. She stepped closer. I've been thinking about that word. Enough. It's what people say when they've forgotten how to dream. He looked at her, caught off guard by the tenderness in her tone. I'm launching a new project, she continued. A sustainability program to reduce waste across all Sterling buildings. I need someone on the ground. Someone who actually understands how things work, not just how they look on paper. Someone like me, exactly like you, she said. He stared at her. I don't have the right background, or degree, or... What you have, she interrupted, is experience. Integrity. I trust you, Ethan. For a moment, he couldn't speak. No one had ever said that to him. Before. He cleared his throat, eyes stinging. I don't know what to say. Say yes, she said softly. He did. Weeks later, Ethan Reyes wasn't pushing a mop anymore. He wore a badge that said Facilities Liaison, Sustainability Division. It wasn't glamorous, but it was his. He'd gone from being invisible to being someone people actually listened to. But what mattered most wasn't the title, it was her faith in him. Lydia checked in often, not like a boss, but like a friend. Sometimes they worked late in her office, sharing takeout and laughter. Other nights, she'd walk with him through the quiet corridors after everyone had left, talking about dreams, hers and his. Somewhere between those long nights and quiet mornings, something deeper bloomed between them. Still, they never crossed that line. Not yet. Maybe both were afraid of breaking the delicate balance that held them together. Until the night of the company gala. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne. Ethan stood near the back, uncomfortable in a black suit that fit too well to be borrowed. He watched Lydia glide through the crowd, poised and radiant, greeting investors with effortless charm. She caught his eye across the room. The smallest smile tugged at her lips. When she finally approached, the crowd seemed to part for her. You clean up well, Mr. Reyes, she teased softly. He smiled. You look like you own the world. Maybe, she murmured, but tonight, I'd rather just be a woman. Music swelled. She extended a hand. Dance with me. Ethan froze. Here, with everyone watching. Let them, she said, her voice low but steady. For once, I don't care. He hesitated only a moment before taking her hand. It felt small and warm against his calloused palm. They moved slowly under the chandelier's glow, the murmur of shocked whispers surrounding them like static. But Lydia didn't look away from him. "I used to think power meant never needing anyone," she said quietly. "Then you sat at the wrong table and ruined that theory." He smiled faintly. "Sorry about that." "Don't be," she whispered. "It's the best mistake I ever made." They danced in silence for a long moment, lost in the soft rhythm. The janitor and the CEO. Two people from different worlds, drawn together by an accident that wasn't one at all. When the song ended, she didn't let go. "You know what I see when I look at you?" she asked. "What?" "Someone who reminds me what real looks like." He looked at her, his heart full. "You make me believe that maybe the wrong turn was the right one all along." She smiled, eyes shining. "Then here's to wrong tables." And as the room watched in stunned silence, Lydia Sterling, CEO, billionaire, untouchable, kissed the janitor everyone once ignored. In that moment, the world made sense again. Because sometimes fate doesn't ask permission. Sometimes it just sits you at the wrong table, and waits for you to notice it's exactly where you belong.